Go live now.
Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan. As I tried to say at the top, welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm not sure if anyone heard that. We're going to talk about the last episode of WandaVision. But before we do that, I'm going to fix John's window so you can actually see him.
Keep me in the corner. No.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, what did you think of this episode, the series finale? Which is named series finale.
Yeah,
Series finale.
it's kind of interesting in that they
Actually-
named it series finale. Yeah.
Actually, before we start, if you haven't watched the episode, watch the episode. We're gonna spoil everything, even the after credit scenes. Cause there's a mid credit scene and there's a ending credit scene. So spoiler alert, and then we're gonna jump right into it because we already gave some time to the technical issues. So, Jhon, what do you want to start with?
Just a quick recap. A quick reaction to it. What a great ending. It definitely hit on some things that we thought was going to happen. Other things did not happen the way we thought they were going to be. In a previous video that we did on a reaction video, Colin mentioned that Marvel has a tendency to try to keep things a little bit simpler, not as complex. And
Right.
that's what happened here. And as a result, I think it was better for it. It definitely focused a little bit more. It drew our attention to the true core of the whole series, which was Wanda and Vision. And I got to say, before we even got on, these are my tears tissue that I have to admit, I cried like a baby on some of those scenes, and what a beautiful way they did that. And Marvel has a way of telling stories like this, right? It's powerful, it's impactful. Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, my gosh, they they did a great job. Seriously, very, very good job on their acting and the way this brought everything to an end. And of course, nice setups for other things as well, and we can get into that.
Yeah, definitely for me, same idea is that they really beautiful kind of ending part there. And like Jhon said, Marvel does tend to keep it very simple. I mean, the bad guys end up being the ones that are, thrown in jail or have some type of thing happen to them. With Agatha, going back into that kind of warped reality world, and Hayward being arrested. So the good guys ended up being good, the bad guys ended up being bad, and everyone's happy at the end. But again, there's still a lot of questions. The only disappointing thing that I feel as though it was a little wasted was Quicksilver. We found out that Quicksilver's Ralph Boner. Kind of interesting name there. But yeah, underutilized in that. That was probably, if I had to nitpick about it, definitely that would be the nitpickiest of nitpicky things to really dissect. But yeah, Jhon, you're right. The emotion, they just kind of, it's not manipulative like a Pixar movie. It is very well earned, and you kind of feel for the characters. And they've been building like this for a long time. I mean, ever since Guardians, the first Guardians movie, and then Guardians 2, and Avengers Endgame, and Avengers Infinity War, they've been building all that type of emotion into these characters, and we feel very invested. And I think that that's the brilliance of Feige, that's the brilliance of the MCU, that they've been really able to do that and hit people emotionally and want people to care about their characters, and that's very important.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you guys. I can't say that this was my favorite episode of the season, because it has the same third act problem that all Marvel things have. There's a little bit too much flying around and special effects that were okay in certain areas and not great in other areas. But the emotional core of the show was definitely present there as well. I definitely like the Vision duel and how they resolved that, and we can get to that. I have actually some clips that I could probably show later on about that. It was emotionally resonant around the two main characters. I mean, the show is called Wanda and Vision, and I know a lot of people were spinning out on all these theories about what was going to happen. Multiverse, mutants. We talked about a little bit of that. I mean, I don't think we spun out nearly as much as most of the internet, because everything was Mephisto. I think we went down that rabbit hole for like 1 week, but most of our theories are mostly grounded in the fact that, as you said, Colin, that they usually keep things simple, and Mephisto was always something that was too complicated for the show. I'm not sure why anyone thought that he was going to show up, but yeah, the one issue, and it doesn't like sink the entire show, is that they shouldn't have introduced Pietro if they weren't going to use him, because I think most of the theories were just off the rails ridiculous. But if you're gonna bring someone in who's from a different franchise, and in the voiceover say, for people who are blind, the Pietro from the X-Men universe, because it does say that in the audio description, and not do anything with him, that's on you, because people know that you have a movie coming up called Multiverse of Madness, so they're going to speculate. Doesn't sink the show. The show is still one of the best series that I've seen. But it was a little bit of annoying, like you said, a nitpick. If I'm going to nitpick the show, that they created an issue for themselves that they didn't have to create. They could have handled that in a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, still not enough of Darcy. Still not enough of even Jimmy Woo with his limited scenes. I think he had more scenes than Darcy.
Yes.
I think we can all agree Darcy and Jimmy Woo, they gotta have their own show, right? I mean, we like their characters and how they're played. They're just fun to watch. And yes, Pietro, Evan Peters, no fault to him, but definitely a disappointment in how they. I mean, my gosh, that was what was it? Iron Man 3, fake Mandarin. That's what it came out to be, right? Just played as a laugh, a joke.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, come on, while we love these actors and the way they play them, especially Ben Kingsley as the fake Mandarin, what a disappointment as a comic book fan to see that this is the way they went about it. Now, could it be that he still ends up being something else? I don't know. I mean, how did he get his speed powers like that? Is that all? Was that all Agatha Harkness? But they didn't delve into that, so I guess we won't know. Definitely not in this series.
It's unclear why he would have had a like headshot of himself. Is he an actor? Is he the guy in witness protection? So he was trying to learn his part. Why did he have a headshot of himself? Why was she able to come across that and say, "Oh, you're Ralph Boner"? I don't know. That was a weird thing. So that goes to your theory that maybe there's another shoe to drop that we don't know of, or we that might come later. But right now it was a wasted opportunity with information that we know. So
yeah, I do also want to mention that Wanda's costume, the full-fledged Scarlet Witch costume is amazing. It's just really well done. Yeah. I think that was just a very impressive. Whoever did costume design did a bang-up job on that, because just that transformation from her being in the Modern Family outfit, like working mom outfit, into full-fledged Scarlet Witch. It really much embodied the comics, from the House of M comics of who Scarlet Witch is. So that was very great to see in its whole glory and things like that. And then also the interchange between Vision and White Vision, just that interchange about the story, that was very interesting, and also brings up a little bit of things in terms of doing some extra research on who that is. Remember, Nathan, you did some extra research on a previous episode that we did on Darwin, and so this might be a little bit of a small dive into the researching what they were talking about by White Vision and Vision.
Yeah, actually, I think I have that scene. I can probably cue it up. There, let me see. Just before Boner Uh, she takes over the rock.
Burning directive to destroy the vision.
I think they're
but
calling
not
it
the true
Dick
vision.
Silver.
I request a
Voice.
Hashtag
Handle the
that.
military.
John, you gotta hashtag that.
Mom will be right.
No, I can't take credit for that. I saw
okay.
and I was like,
Oh, really?
hey, you know what?
Here it is.
Yeah, I can see that.
Here it is. It's a little clip.
You are familiar with the thought experiment, the ship of Theseus in the field of identity metaphysics.
Naturally. The ship of Theseus is an artifact in the museum. Over time, its planks of wood rot and are replaced with new planks. When no original plank remains, is it still the ship of Theseus?
Secondly, if those removed planks are
I am Vision.
It's pretty funny. He's like, I am Vision, and it just goes away after that. You don't see it for the rest of the episode. So
Yeah.
I guess that's their backdoor into bringing Paul Bettany back at some point.
Yeah.
You would think that if he got all his memories back, he would go and find Wanda. So that was a little bit of a plot hole. I guess they have to explain that another time. If he's the Spectral Vision, and that's what he was called in the West Coast Avengers. I think it was issue 54 that he became Spectral Vision. I have checked that. It's off the top of my head. I was reading it the other day. If he's the Spectral Vision, it's possible that he has all those memories back because Spectral Vision had all his memories back, but he didn't have his core personality. He didn't have his soul, and maybe that's what the Mind Stone provided to him.
Correct.
So it's possible that's why he's like, I have all the memories, but I don't have any really attachment to this woman anymore. I don't know where he went. I mean, there's no Avengers.
Yeah.
Complex was destroyed at the end of Endgame, so maybe he went there. But he doesn't know that because the last memory he has is Thanos taking out his stone. So yeah. So
that face off they had it became this intellectual, existential mind battle,
right?
Almost like a rap battle, right? So they went at it that way, and the contrast where the ladies are just flinging their magic at each other. Ferociously through the skies and flying all over. Well, both fights were flying all over the place. Nathan, you mentioned I was surprised to see that the graphics. You're right. There were some parts where I was surprised it just wasn't up to par like we normally see with most Marvel Studios movies. There were some sections in there. I thought it was my TV at first, but it's in 4K. I could see it.
No, it was some of the battle with himself. It was obvious. It was obviously all computer generated, and it's more difficult to do that stuff convincingly when you're doing it in a daylight scene. It's easier to do it in a nighttime scene, but the whole battle was in the middle of the day, so you had to spend a lot more money on it, and I guess they didn't spend enough money or they didn't have enough time. We have to remember that they were doing this during the pandemic, right? They started recording, then they left, and then they came back under COVID protocols, so that might have something to do with it. That also might have something to do with why Darcy was only in one scene, and she was like, and then she pieced out because they maybe couldn't have got her on set.
That's right.
When they needed.
That one scene, and then you never saw again. To explain it away conveniently with one sentence, right?
Yeah, exactly. It might have been just like COVID protocols, and it just couldn't get the schedules to match up. But hopefully, as you said, John, we get a Darcy and Jimmy Woo show at some point. The internet demands it.
Speaking of
absolutely,
speaking of that, there was an article about Randall Park. I think it was like yesterday, where for those of you that are very interested in The Office, he played a brief prank on Dwight as Asian Jim, and actually there are people that are out there that recognize him as Asian Jim, and then he said that he didn't remember that role, and I was very shocked. I was like, "You don't remember that role, really?" And so. He thought that they were insulting him, and so he actually gave them some expletives and some colorful language because they thought that individuals were mocking him because of that. So it was very fascinating to kind of see Randall Park from from that angle, and I always remember him from Agent Jim. And so when you mentioned Darcy and Jimmy Woo having their own show, hopefully it's going to be something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think they'll take in information about this show and how well it did and make some decisions about what to create next. You would think they would take in all the bad feelings that they got when they did the Mandarin thing and not do the Ralph Boner thing. Since though they did that almost 10 years ago and it was not received well, which makes me think maybe there's another shoe to drop and they're just messing with us because they're just messing with us about messing with us, because if they're just messing with us like they did with the Mandarin, I mean, I feel like they had enough time to learn their lesson not to do that. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So at the end, I mean, we can jump around, and I have clips. So at the very end, well, actually, before I get to the end, we have the resolution with the runes, right? So the Rune Fight, or after Vision dispatches White Vision or Spectral Vision, we have Wanda tricking Agnes, or Agatha rather.
In space. Only the witch who cast them can use her magic. Thanks for the lesson.
You have no idea what you've unleashed. You're gonna need me.
Yes, I do. I know where to find you.
Wait.
We'd lose Nathan there.
Wait.
Boys, thanks.
So maybe I can pick up on that. So yeah, that was very interesting fight in terms of she was trying to kind of battle her, and it was interesting because you didn't really know whether or not she was losing her power before the runes show up. You didn't really know if she was losing her power or gaining her power at the time. And so it was very fascinating to see that she was trying to play tricks on Agatha, while Agatha was the one in the last episode that was trying to play tricks on the other witches. And so trying to pick up on those types of tricks that Agatha put on her in the previous episode and using it for her own sake was really great. Kind of like, taste of your own medicine type of thing. That was really interesting.
Yeah, it was a good. There are some parts of this episode which are weaker than others, but that was actually pretty good writing, I think, because it was obvious that she wasn't going to be able to outsmart her because not outwit her. I mean, by with her knowledge, because as she said, Wanda's like raw power. And Agatha has the knowledge. She has hundreds of years of knowledge. Wanda thought she was going to catch her off guard by doing the thing that she did to Tony, by trapping her in her mind. And she's like, yeah, you have the power, but you don't have the knowledge. And just give me the power. So yeah, she basically did what Agnes has been doing, or Agatha has been doing all season long. She played the victim. She played like she was wildly throwing at things, and if you rewind it before, because you don't catch it when it's happening, you just assume that she's wildly throwing, but you see that she's missing a lot, and she's hitting the walls, but you don't notice that. You just think that she's just missing, and because she's losing control. It was a good solution to the problem, to her problem of not being able to best her as a witch. And it also shows that she's a very smart, quick learner, because we see her learning at the end of the episode as well, at the end credit scene.
Yeah, definitely a quick study, and definitely just trying to. Again, I think that even the audience got caught off. I mean, I got caught off guard. I was like, is she really like losing all her power because Agatha's so powerful and things? But then all of a sudden, nope, she's the one who's actually in control. So definitely, like you said, Nathan, really good writing in that part, and making sure that kind of like throw the audience kind of in a loop to kind of see where it kind of results in.
Yeah, it threw me off when, you see that she's clearly defeated and drained, yet still floating there. I expected her to just drop like a stone out of the sky, but I said, "Uh-oh, she pulled something on Agatha. I wonder what it is." And sure enough, very clever that battle.
It's
Right.
interesting. It's interesting. Either I think what was happening there is she should have dropped like a stone, right? But Agatha didn't have powers afterwards, so it was obvious that obviously what we thought was happening was that Agatha was keeping Wanda in the air, but it seems like Wanda was keeping Agatha in the air, making her think that she still had powers because she's the one who lowered her down to the ground. So it's interesting. If you rewatch it, you can see what was happening. So what do you think of the? I actually switch back to the. Before this, we get the scene with all the townsfolk being awakened and their horrified reactions. It was also really good writing here.
Daughter, she's 8. She could be friends with your boys. If you like that storyline, or the school bully even. Really anything. If you could just let her out of her room. If I could just hold her. Please.
Don't let us go. Just let us die. Please.
Yeah. So, by the end of that, it's like if you won't let us go, let us die. I don't think, as Wanda says at the end of this episode, for a good portion of them, it probably won't matter that she gave up her family because she was literally torturing them for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it did a good job of showing that, you know what, there are consequences here. And that's something that I have liked what Marvel has done in their movies. Superhero movies have a tendency to, just kind of reset things. Everything's back to the status quo because the hero has captured the bad guy supervillain. Or killed the supervillain, and therefore everything is back to normal again. Whereas Marvel has clearly shown through the Avengers movies, especially Infinity War after the snap, the consequences of that, and then the blip, the return of everyone coming back, that there are consequences of that as well. And here we see that although Wanda, while everyone feels for her as to why this may have happened, the consequences are not a lot of people are going to be very understanding, especially as they're caught in her hex of having to act out all these roles against their will.
Yeah, not really caught in the hex and being like Agatha said, they're her meat puppets. I mean, there's several layers of the trauma that she's inflicted on these people because she was trying to deal with her trauma. It's just this is not something she was aware of, but it really doesn't matter. Her intentions aren't really important here. When she's sleeping, or when they sleep, apparently they get her nightmares. So they just get a replay of her grief, and it's poisoning them. So yeah, I don't see. There's probably going to be repercussions into the future. I mean, she basically went into the woods to sequester herself, but I mean, she was already kind of public enemy before Thanos showed up, right? But the people were like chasing her around the globe, the U.S. government, because of the Sokovia Accords, because she broke it and she never wanted to be controlled by the Sokovia Accords, which I guess Monica just let her go, because it's not like Monica could do anything. Well, we don't know if Monica could do anything, but under Monica's understanding of her powers right now, she couldn't do anything. She doesn't. We got her superhero or power moment in this episode, but she doesn't know how to really control her powers, even less than Wanda does. So yeah, she just let her go. And we see Jimmy kind of controlling, trying to handle the scene at the end, medical evac and getting evidence. But like all the medical care is needed because of what Wanda did. all the evidence that needs to be collected is because of what Wanda did. And then Wanda was just allowed to leave. So I think there's definitely something that has to become of that at some point.
Yeah, I mean, looking just like you said, Jhon, like looking back into her whole MCU run. I mean, you're starting with Ultron, and then she's basically working with Ultron, and then she did save some people in Age of Ultron. Then you go to Civil War, the bombing, and then She was part of the Sokovia Accord, so she was in with Captain America, throughout Civil War, on his side, and she was imprisoned, and then got left out by Captain America. So all throughout, it's been these questionable types of actions that's been going on with Wanda, and to some, she has not been held accountable for it, and that might lead to other types of, like you said, other types of things that might come about, control in terms of trying to capture her, whether Falcon Winter Soldier is going to be part of that, we don't know yet, but there hasn't been any consequence to what she's been doing, actually. So, as a person that who's like Dottie or Mrs. Hart, they might see that and they're like, "What gives?"
Right.
Are they above the law? So.
Yeah.
So I guess Mr. Hart is just absolutely gone because.
Yeah, I think that might have been another scheduling thing, similar to the Darcy thing, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that he wouldn't be there. I think they probably shot that. I know that they shot that in front of a studio audience, that first episode in front of a studio audience, so that would have been pre-COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe they couldn't get that actor back on set. Afterwards, maybe they wrote some scenes with him in Mrs. Hart, and they had to cut that out of the script because they had to make some adjustments because of COVID. Because it doesn't make any sense that he doesn't show up even at the end when Mrs. Hart. I keep calling her Mrs. Hart because I don't remember what her real name is from the board. But when she's approaching her, you would expect him to be there. So I think they just couldn't. They were just scheduling conflicts because of COVID. That's the only thing that really makes sense.
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure the actor is still with us. So
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then finally, so I saw this. I can't take credit for seeing this, but I should have seen this because I kind of know a lot about it. But the stages of grief. I think Nathan, you may have even mentioned it at one time in one of our earlier videos. Right. Where we're seeing throughout the season the progression of the 5 stages of grief, right? We've got the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, right? That was a previous one.
Yeah, that was 2 episodes back, yeah. It's depression, yeah.
And now the acceptance. And as soon as I saw that was happening right there where they all kind of decided, let's go home.
Right.
At that part. And especially with Vision, I forget how exactly he said it. He said, basically, you know what to do, and I know I'm not going to be a part of it.
I don't have a clip of that, but I think basically what they said that I know you'll make it right, but not for us. And she said, no, not for us.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, I knew exactly what it meant, and I was just like, oh my god, because I knew it was coming, and I was like, oh man, they're gonna do that, and sure enough, the rest of the way for about 10, 15 minutes, they're just dragging it out. I'm like, just phenomenal acting.
Yeah.
And the beats, the pace of it, the way they focus in on certain faces here and there, and Paul Bettany and Elizabeth. It was fantastic. That was great.
So I actually, last week I was talking about the kids, and I didn't think they were going to have the kids disappear. And it is actually a correction that my wife brought up last week. I mentioned her not being able to be a superhero because of the kids. That was a mistake on my part. I didn't mean that because she has kids she can't be a superhero, because of course Hawkeye has kids. I just thought I was just saying that it needs to be something. It needs to be there needs to be something written. Of course, she is as powerful as she is. She can make a nanny. So of course she can be a superhero and have kids. But they did take the kids away at the end, which I didn't think they were going to do because it's a Disney property. But at the very, very end, they're still calling out to her, so they didn't really take them away. When she's studying the book, so we didn't, and we also didn't see them disintegrate, which again, Disney show, so you wouldn't have seen them and even him disintegrating or him being reabsorbed. It was done very beautifully. You wouldn't have. I think actually I have a clip of that I can actually show that whole conversation. One second. You jump back to She also says something interesting here. Thanks for choosing me.
Thanks for choosing me.
Yeah, to the kids. The goodbye. What did he say? Goodbye, chaps.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard a little bit in his voice there too. That's why I was like, Paul Bettany, you just knocked it out of the park on this. You really did. And well, what a sweet moment. Very, very bittersweet.
So long, darling.
They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
Yeah, he says so long, darling. So they wrote it very, like you said, they drew it out for a while, but that was the point of the whole show, right? You started the show with like C-list Avengers, and now they're probably the most, or the favorite Avengers of the entire of all the Avengers, because we know more about them than pretty much everyone else, right? We're invested in them more than everyone else,
right?
And which is good, because Cap is gone, Iron Man is gone. We need other characters. We need other people to step up for us to invest in, like we invested in Cap, invested in Iron Man since 2008. And this was I think this was a good move for Marvel. Even though, like I said, with minor missteps. I mean, it's not a perfect series, but it's pretty good. And the actors in this show really should be not just nominated; they should really win Emmys, especially Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah.
For her acting, just how she modulates her acting depending on the time period. And we talked about this before, but I mean, it's worth repeating, because in this episode again, she's just really good. And so is Vision, so is Paul Bettany as well. So they definitely need to be nominated for their work. This is really great work.
Agreed,
Definitely.
We want to talk about the mid-credit scene.
Sure. So the mid-credit scene was the Skrull, right? And I mean, I have that, but I only have a couple seconds. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to play it. So I guess that ties into Far From Home, right? Because that's where we saw.
Yes.
That's where we saw Nick Fury at the end of Far From Home. So I assume he's talking about Far From Home. I mean, there are a couple questions that weren't answered, like Hexagon, why a Hexagon, who the person in witness protection is, unless that's Ralph, and also the aerospace engineer. Again, I thought Goodner was going to be a Skrull, but I looked it up, and the woman who turned out to be a Skrull at the end of this show was not the same woman.
Nope, someone different.
Someone completely different. That walked up to her. So I don't know why they wrote that in there. And hopefully we get an answer at some point for that, or the answer might be, again, more COVID stuff. Maybe they wanted someone to show up and it didn't show up. But that's a whole. I mean, there's no reason to draw attention to yourself saying I know an aerospace engineer, and then have the camera showing her texting the person if that person isn't going to be significant. So maybe we find out in either she's going to show up in the Miss Marvel show with Kamala Khan, and she's gonna show up in of course Captain Marvel 2 as well. So maybe there will be some answers there when we see that. And also, I mean, the Skrulls were in this, so maybe she'll be in the Secret Invasion show as well.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
A lot of plug-in, a lot of tie-into that, and I think again this is just some introduction to Monica.
Yeah.
Rambeau, and so knowing her, getting her powers, now that it's kind of like the Black Panther effect. So we're going to get a little bit more of her in the future, series or movies. It'll be very interesting to kind of see where her transition goes from here, because it's definitely going to be a different type of story, because how she was plugged into WandaVision was, when at first when you saw that Comic-Con, you're like, what's going on here? Like, well, how is she going to be connected? Because we thought that she's associated with Captain Marvel.
Right.
And so how they kind of weaved her into WandaVision was actually pretty good. I think it was a good writing in that part, but then, we didn't associate her with WandaVision. So now she gets to kind of go back to her kind of sandbox of Captain Marvel space and things like that. And let's see how that goes.
Yeah, this show did a lot. I mean, I know that some people on the internet are disappointed because their fan theories didn't come to fruition. But like this show introduced Sword. This show introduced Monica Rambeau and had her origin story in the middle of it. It dealt with Wanda and Vision in a very thoughtful and thorough way. It dealt with Wanda's grief. It introduced Billy and Tommy, who will show up later. It did a lot. It did a lot. It's so trying to pile on because it didn't open up the multiverse or mutants weren't involved. I think it's asking a lot of a show that did so much in 9 episodes. So
correct.
It was very good writing, as you said, Colin, to weave that stuff in and make it not seem like tacked on.
Right, and also, you will see Wanda again, in Doctor Strange 2. So it's like you're gonna see her for a while, for the rest of this year. But next year, when Multiverse of Madness comes out, she's gonna be there. So
she actually might have a small part in Spider-Man. What is it? No Way Home. At the end of the year as well. She's gonna. I think she.
Oh yes.
I've read that she's going to show up in a small part in that movie, and then she's going to show up in a major way in the Multiverse of Madness. She's going to be basically the co-lead with Doctor Strange in that movie. So we might see her before the year ends.
So that could be like a post-credit or mid-credit scene there.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the biggest disappointments for many people. I didn't mind, even though I wanted it to happen, and that was the multiverse not being introduced in this series, right? We all thought it was headed there because of Pietro showing up, but because we didn't get that, and I think Marvel's fine for doing that. To save it for the big movie for that. Right?
The Pietro thing was an unforced error, but they didn't promise you multiverse. They promised you. The show is called WandaVision. I think Pietro coming in made people spin out in the multiverse speculation, but the show was always supposed to be about Wanda and Vision, and I think they did an excellent job dealing with those two characters and giving you all the other stuff that I listed that had nothing to do with Wanda and Vision, but it didn't distract from the story of Wanda and Vision that we got that we can continue to expand upon. We got basically this was a story about Wanda and Vision, and we got introduction to a replacement for S.H.I.E.L.D. and 3 more heroes that we didn't know about before, in addition to Wanda and Vision. So yeah, it was
absolutely. Yeah, and so I think that like you said, I think that they did introduce a lot there already, and then there's new costumes. Like I mentioned earlier with the Scarlet Witch. The concept of Scarlet Witch, and then in the end credit scene having, Wanda being kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, kind of reminded me of Incredible Hulk a little bit, being out there in the middle of nowhere.
The same thing,
yeah, and a little bit of Minority Report, the movie Minority Report. So it's like way out in the middle of nowhere, no one's gonna bother them. But then she's like there, and then she's studying the book, so she's really learning at a very quick pace and seeing where that's going to lead. And also could be hints of a multiverse or trying to get the kids back in some ways. Maybe.
So what?
So interesting.
Some of the internet thinks that she's either in Sokovia or Wundagore Mountain, which is where they were born in the or in the comics. I doubt it's Wundagore because the Mountain, because that inside of the MCU she doesn't know what that is. So I think she probably just went into the woods in Sokovia, went back home. I think that makes more sense logically within universe. But yeah, we see her reading in her astral form, similar to the way that we saw Doctor Strange reading in his astral form in his movie. However, they had Agnes. They were specifically have had. I keep calling her Agnes. Agatha say that she is more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, and you can see that she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme because Doctor Strange was in his astral form reading, because when his body gave out, he could continue to read and continue to study in his astral form. But her body was moving around, and she was projecting an astral. That's like next level, because whenever you see magic like this, they whenever someone is projecting themselves on the astral plane, their body is always vulnerable. But she's able to move around while her body is. So she's basically splitting her consciousness, which is something I haven't seen before.
She's Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
Well, without something hanging out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah. Anything else? Is there any questions from anyone online?
They're getting more into theory and predictions as to where Wiccan and Speed could potentially show back up, especially since while she's studying the Darkhold, we hear the child's voice or children's voices.
Yeah, I think I have that clip as well. I mean, everyone saw it, but so yeah, you hear. So it's unclear where she's hearing them from, and maybe that was the last little hint of the multiverse. Like she's hearing them from some other universe. They're because they don't exist anymore in this universe. She destroyed that town. I mean, she destroyed her illusion. So maybe that's where she's hearing them from. Now that she's studying more, maybe she's more in touch with the other universes. All the commercials weren't necessarily explained, but I think we explained them pretty well in our breakdowns. And I think the Nexus thing was her being a Nexus being. The fact that she is the one of the constants between all of the universes. So maybe she's tapping more and more into her powers, and now that she's tapping more and more into her powers, given that she's studying the Darkhold, which showed up in this and also showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now that she's studying the Darkhold, she's learning, and she can tap into other universes now. So maybe that's where we'll pick up in the next movie. Sorry, the next movie being Far From Home, because we don't understand Far From Home. We don't know what that means, but given the casting that they're doing for that movie, given the fact that they're casting people from other universes, maybe she plays a part in the very beginning when she spins out.
Could be.
Who knows? And then at the end. But yeah, I think that's where her children are in another universe. Unless you guys have another theory or for where that.
I definitely think it's another universe. The other possibility could be Quantum Realm, but I think that would be a little bit of a stretch because it did mention in the past that when they were inside the Quantum Realm, Wasp, the original Wasp, Janet Van Dyne, was in the Quantum Realm. Mentioned like there was like another universe there. So you never know if that would be the case. But I don't believe that I think it's more of the multiverse Doctor Strange angle because of Wanda being in Doctor Strange 2 and things like that. So I see them coming back through that. And of course, like you said, with some of the Young Avengers that might be coming up, that might be the place to go, because we have Kate Bishop coming and we have Ms. Marvel. So Wiccan and Speed now, and you don't know if Spider-Man is going to be part of it, or if any of Spider-Man's friends are going to be, as the internet has been saying, whether they're going to become heroes in their own right. We don't really know that. So there's a lot there, and also I forgot Cassie Lang. So that's the other important one.
Yeah, they did recast Cassie Lang because she's definitely going to show up as Stature. I think it's Stature. It's her code name in the comics. She'll show up as Stature later on.
Yeah,
definitely.
America Chavez as well.
They definitely have a lot of the younger. America Chavez has her own show. Kamal Khan, as we said earlier. So yeah, they're definitely putting a Young Avengers team together that they can play with for the next 10, 12 years.
And they cast them young too, by the way. So still in their teens, actual teens.
Yeah. And the Billy and Tommy, I don't think they're going to age up there are reports that they're in London right now where Doctor Strange is being shot.
That's right, and they quickly deleted that post, right?
So yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not going to age them up. So they can play with these kids can play these roles for a while. They'll just be the youngest on the team.
Right.
I don't remember from the comics who is the leader. If it's Kate Bishop or if it's someone else.
I think it was Stature.
Stature was the leader. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was.
Started out as the Patriot, and then Stature got a turn at it, and I could have sworn Kate Bishop got a turn at it as well.
I feel like Billy was there. Billy was there for a while before they found Tommy, and then they realized later on that they were brothers because they were born in the comics. They disappeared just like they do in the show, and then they were reincarnated elsewhere to two separate parents, and then they realize that they're brothers later on. But I think Billy shows up first, reincarnated, and then Tommy shows up. So he joins the team before Tommy joins the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're probably not going to do that. I think that's a little bit too overly complicated to have them reincarnated to different parents. But it is obvious that they're building the team. Building the Young Avengers team.
Yep.
All right, so we've been up talking for almost an hour now. Any other questions? Any other reactions? People want to? Anything that we missed talking about? Your mic is off. I can't hear you.
Your mic is off.
Sorry, no questions at this time that we see, but yeah, no more at this time.
All right,
Yep.
So. That's all we saw, but we'll probably be back actually in 2 weeks to start talking about the Falcon the Winter Soldier. So hopefully you guys will join us for that, and we'll see you then. All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.